Billie Dove was one of the biggest movie stars of the 1920s and made quite the successful transition to the talkies. But in 1932, she retired. Why? Join me as I investigate. Billie Dove was born Lillian Bonney in 1903 in New York to Charles and Bertha Bonney, Swiss immigrants. From an early age, she went by the nickname of Billie. In the late 19-teens, teenage Billie began working as a model to help support her family, appearing in multiple print ads. According to Silence is Platinum, the great Broadway producer Florenz Ziegfeld spotted Billie in one of these ads and quickly found her and cast her as a beautiful showgirl in either his 1919 or 1920 Follies. Billie was quite a success in the Follies and soon began to get film offers. According to an interview that she gave to TCM in 1995, Billie recalled her first movie work as being an extra in several movies, I'm assuming sometime between 1919 and 1920. She had registered with 2 casting companies and was called in for background work for one of them, even though, according to Billie, film work was forbidden by Ziegfeld. Billie recounts her first named role as the leading lady to Johnny Hines in a 1920 comedy short. The name of the movie escaped her. It could have been one of his early Torchy shorts before Dorothy Leeds became his leading lady. Billie's next movie was the 1921 short The White Bottle, in which she played the lead and was credited as Lillian Bonney. However, her first feature-length movie as a named character was 1921's Get Rich Quick Wallingford, which was produced by Cosmopolitan through Paramount and starred Sam Hardy, Norman Carey, and Doris Kenyon. Billie played Dorothy Wells, a supporting role, and was credited by the name Billie Dove for the first time. Her next movie contained her first feature-length starring role, that of Mary Matthews in the Christy Caban drama At the Stage Door, which got her glowing notices in Variety, Exhibitor's Herald, and Motion Picture News. Billie was off to a great start, and after starring in another Christy Caban film in 1922, Beyond the Rainbow, which marked the debut of a young Clara Bow, Billie moved from New York to California and began starring in movies made at Metro, Fox, and Universal. Her first star vehicle was 1922's Youth to Youth. She then starred with Malcolm McGregor and Lon Chaney in 1923's All the Brothers Were Valiant, in which Variety stated that she was a revelation in personality and beauty and had the potential to be quite a talented actress. She then co-starred with John Gilbert in Madness of Youth, which also gave her an excellent notice in Motion Picture News, which stated that she radiates charm. Billie closed out 1923 starring in 3 westerns, Soft Boiled and The Lone Star Ranger, both with Tom Mix, and The Thrill Chaser with Hoot Gibson. Billie made 6 films in 1924, moving between True Art, PDC, FBO, Paramount, and Fox. At Paramount, she starred with Jack Holt and Kathleen Williams in the western Wanderer of the Wasteland, which was shot completely in 2-color Technicolor and got her a nice notice about her appearance and color in Variety. At Fox, she starred with Betty Blythe and Jack Mulhall in The Folly of Vanity. Variety praised her appearance yet again for this film. While Billie was giving lovely performances, either the reviewers were unable to look past her great beauty, or the studios were not casting her in parts that allowed for her to really demonstrate her considerable acting talent yet. In 1925, Billie starred with Warner Baxter and Mary Bryan in The Airmail, which finally got her a good review for her acting in the New York Times. She also starred in the Paramount Western Wild Horse Mesa, opposite Jack Holt and Douglas Fairbanks Jr., a film that thankfully still survives. In 1926, Billie starred with Douglas Fairbanks Sr. in one of her most famous roles, Princess Isabel in The Black Pirate, a hit both critically and commercially. It was the second highest money-making film of the year. Billie gave a beautiful performance full of subtle nuance as the woman who realizes she is falling in love with the pirate that has come to rescue her. While she got good mentions for the movie, reviewers were still focused more on her looks rather than her acting talent. According to film historian William M. Drew, Billie still needed to work with a director who could bring out her full potential as an actress. Fortunately, Billie found that director in Lois Weber, who directed her next film, The Marriage Clause, a drama that co-starred Francis X. Bushman. In its review of the film, Motion Picture News wrote, "The marriage clause is even more important because it proves that Billie Dove is an actress and not what she principally has been regarded up to now, a mannequin. She displays abilities and depths that any of her sisters of the screen might well envy. Because of that, in Miss Weber's direction, it is a picture that will go far to enhance the reputation of the star, director, and company." Billie closed out in 1926, starring with Eddie Cantor, Lawrence Gray, and Clara Bow in Kid Boots at Paramount, which didn't give her as much to do as the marriage clause, but still allowed her to give a delightful performance. Fortunately, Billie was teamed up with director Lois Weber again in 1927's Sensation Seekers at Universal, playing Egypt Hagen, a fascinating party girl who finds love with a minister played by Raymond Bloomer. It was another more complicated role that allowed Billie to really demonstrate her range as an actress. Shortly before its release, Billie signed with First National. William M. Drew writes, "Because of Billie's new critical appraisal due to her work in her 2 Lois Weber films, suddenly she was sought after by all the big studios. But Billie signed a contract with First National, which created star vehicles for her. Now she was central to the plot, her name above the title, and box office dynamite." I agree with Drew's assessment. It's astonishing to look at Billie's film credits on IMDb and see her name suddenly build above the title in huge star vehicles at First National halfway through 1927. These films included The Tender Hour, The Stolen Bride, The Love Mart, and The American Beauty, earning Billie that wonderful nickname as the American Beauty. While all of these films seem to have been commercially successful, The Stolen Bride and The American Beauty in particular seem to have been the biggest hits, judging by the amount of fan testimonials I have read about both films in Motion Picture News and Photoplay. In fact, there is evidence of many of these films being so successful that they continued to play in movie houses well into the following year. 1928 proved to be just as successful a year for Billie. She starred in The Heart of a Follies Girl, Night Watch, Adoration, and Yellow Lily, which was not only a commercial hit, but a critical one, especially for Billie. It earned her a Photoplay Acting Award for the Best Performance of the month of July 1928. Billie also became the 9th biggest box office money-making star in 1928, and was also ranked 2nd among all movie stars in the amount of fan mail that she received, right behind Clara Bow. And many articles discussed how touched Billie was by all of her fan mail and how she tried to answer all of her letters. Since Billie was one of First National's top stars, it's no shock that moving into 1929, they decided to star her in her first all-talking picture, Careers, a drama set in French Indochina that seemed to have been successful. She then starred with Rod LaRocque in the Barstool Talkie, The Man in the Moment, a lovely comedy about a marriage of convenience that got Billie and Rod a nice review for both of their acting and voices in Variety. Billie finished 1929 starring in 2 more talkies, Her Private Life and The Painted Angel. Her films were still bringing in audiences and money at the box office, although she was not quite as huge as she had been in 1928, but being the 26th top-making movie star of 1929 was still quite an accomplishment. Billie had even by this point gotten her own fan club started by fans called Dovetails. Sadly, most of her 1929 films are sadly lost. Billie entered 1930 still starring in successful talkies at First National, who, by now, had become a subsidiary of Warner Brothers. The first was The Other Tomorrow, a sadly lost drama which co-starred Kenneth Thompson and Grant Withers. It was a commercial hit and appears to have been a critical one. Billie was featured in a Variety article that discussed her talent and how she has forged her own path as an individual star that never imitated anyone else. Billie finished out in 1930 starring in 3 more films at First National, A Notorious Affair, Sweethearts and Wives, and One Night at Susie's, before starring in one last film there in 1931, The Lady Who Dared, an interesting crime drama that also starred Sidney Blackmer and Conway Turrell and got all involved a nice mention in the New York Times. In 1931, Billie left First National. While her contract may have expired, her decision to leave may have also had something to do with her personal life at the time. She had separated from her first husband, director Irvin Willett, and began a relationship with mogul Howard Hughes, who had, by 1930, began producing films. Hughes cast her in 2 comedic roles, a genre in which she had great talent, but up till now had not had many opportunities to do. First, she starred in The Age for Love in 1931, which is sadly lost and got mixed reviews. Next, in 1932, she starred with Chester Morris in Cock of the Air, which appears to have been more successful. Billie played French opera star Lily and got a good mention in the New York Times for her comedic abilities. Billie next signed on to co-star with Marion Davies in the 1932 MGM comedy drama Blondie of the Follies, playing Lottie Callahan, a poor girl who finds success in burlesque and changes her name to Lurleen Kavanaugh, speaking French and putting on airs when she must take in her friend from poverty, Blondie, played by Marion. It was an absolutely incredible performance with mixtures of comedy and drama that really showcased Billie's acting abilities across genres. Blondie of the Follies was the first Billie film that I ever saw years ago, and I fell in love with her instantly when I watched it. And it truly is one of the better performances I've ever seen on film. However, according to multiple sources, including Billie herself, Blondie of the Follies was not a happy experience for her. First, her role of Lottie went from being a good-natured friend of Blondie to being what Billie referred to as the Heavy, a villain that is jealous of her friend, resulting in her eventual sabotaging her friend by throwing her into an orchestra pit during a performance, which a plot point which Billie did not care for. Second, apparently William Randolph Hearst, the producer, thought Billie was outshining his love, Marion Davies, in the film and ordered Billie's role to be cut in size and be made to be less sympathetic, making her the supporting villain rather than the glamorous co-star. While Marion does her usual great work in the film, her role was the straight character when compared to Billie's Lottie, who was much more exciting and colorful, and even with Hearst cutting the role down and making her a villain, Billie still managed to steal the entire film from Marion, Robert Montgomery, Jimmy Durante, and everyone else on the screen. I highly recommend it. Sadly, Blondie of the Follies turned out to be Billie's final film. While sources have stated that she quit the business in frustration over the issues of the production, Billie herself indicated that was only part of the reason, as she was ready for a break and eager to start a family. Her romance with Hughes had been then fizzled out, and she met, fell in love with, and married oil executive Robert Keniston in 1933. The couple had 2 children, including son Robert Keniston Jr., who became an actor in the 1950s, and daughter Gail. Billie enjoyed her time with her family out of the limelight, and they maintained residences in both Hollywood and Palm Springs. Along with being with her family, Billie enjoyed painting and writing poetry. Interestingly enough, Billie's impact still carried on years after her retirement, as 2 celebrities later credited Billie as being their favorite. Singer Billie Holiday took her stage name from her favorite movie star as a child, and President Gerald Ford later revealed that Billie was his favorite actress. In 1962, Billie was given an opportunity to return to film, planning to make a cameo appearance as herself in the Charlton Heston film Diamond Head. Unfortunately, her role ended up on the cutting room floor. Billie and Bob Keniston remained married until his death in 1973, although some sources state that they divorced in 1970, so I'm not sure which is correct. Later in 1973, she was briefly married to architect John Miller, but that marriage ended, and after that she went back to going by Billie Keniston. Billie eventually lived in Rancho Mirage, California. In 1985, Billie made a television appearance on Night of 100 Stars 2, glamorously walking onto the stage in a segment honoring silent movie actresses that also included Laura LaPlante, Leatrice Joy, and Lillian Gish. She also began to grant interviews, and in the 1990s began to discuss her life and career with film historian Michael G. Ankerick. I highly recommend checking out his book, Sounds of Silence, and his essays about meeting Billie on his website on WordPress. In 1995, at the age of 92, Billie gave an in-depth interview at TCM, where she spoke fondly and candidly about her life and career from beginning to end. Sadly, later that year, Billie's son Robert died from lung cancer, a loss that sent her health into a decline. She moved into the motion picture country home and lived for another 2 years quietly before passing away from pneumonia in 1997 at the age of 94. So we are left with the question, why did Billie Dove retire after making a successful transition to the Talkies? Well, fortunately, we have that answer from Billie herself in her interviews with Michael G. Ankerick and from her interview at TCM. She was both frustrated by her experience working on Blondie of the Follies and also wanted to get married and start a family, so she decided to call it quits. Billie elaborated on this to TCM in 1995, saying, I was still in my 20s and I thought, well, I've accomplished my goal. I wanted to be a motion picture star. I wanted to give good performances, and I've done that. And I know I did that in this picture, Blondie of the Follies, and I won't let it upset me. I think I'll do what the other people do and settle down and have a family. Because at that time, it was all right if you were married to someone, but if you had a baby, you had to be out of pictures completely. You were no longer romantic. So I think I'll get married and I'll have a family. While it's disappointing that Billie retired after only 12 years in motion pictures, it's comforting to know that she still retired while still being a well-known star and had acted in so many acclaimed films. Unfortunately, several of her films are lost, but we do still have a number around for you to enjoy. I suggest checking out The Black Pirate, Kid Boots, and Sensation Seekers from her silent days on YouTube. You can also find Cock of the Air on YouTube from her Talkie days, and I highly suggest finding a copy of Blondie of the Follies. You can purchase it on DVD or stream it on the Criterion channel. You can also find her full interview with TCM on YouTube, which is just a blessing for us to have. While Billie Dove was one of the most beautiful women to act on the screen, she was also one of the most talented. What a talent, what a legend. I must thank my sources for this episode, Michael G. Anchorage, Jessica Wall at Silence is Platinum, film historian William M. Drew, and of course, Billie Dove herself, and a thanks to Turner Classic Movies for interviewing Billie. Please like and subscribe or follow this account if you want to learn more about the history of silent film stars whose stardom lasted only briefly in the talkies. Up next, join me as I cover the silent talkie career of Louise Dresser. Thank you so much for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a happy Thanksgiving.